as mysteriously as some physical media releases appear, they can disappear all the same. So today's video is going to be a little unorthodox. It's half kind of a review and also part story. Mostly story. This is something that I find super fascinating in the world of horror physical media specifically. Looking at my spinner shelf earlier, and I pulled off a movie off the shelf that when I looked at it, I instantly was reminded of when my mind changed on collecting horror physical media. I thought, what's out of print mean? Out of print how? Like you can't get the movie? They stopped making it? Or are they going to make more in like 6 months? What does this mean? I learned a lesson here, and thankfully I lucked out on this lesson. The movie I pulled off of my shelf was this, 976 Evil. Now, that is not the first way I owned that movie. The first way I owned this movie is right here. And we've got a story to tell about this release. But let's kind of set the stage. It's the mid-2010s, and my physical media journey is underway. Now, I had been collecting horror DVDs and stuff for some time. Mind you, my collecting of horror DVDs today is different because I enjoy the nostalgia of it, and I love some of those old menu screens. That one included. So at this time, I would go to FYE and I would be picking up Scream Factory titles. Nowadays, I pretty much order all my movies basically from Amazon, but I really enjoyed going to FYE and getting their titles. Even though a lot of stuff was like way overpriced, for some reason, they would pretty much have all the Scream Factory titles on sale for basically the MSRP or retail price. I remember picking up a few titles around this time like this. The Craft, which is a Blu-ray that I love. I never upgraded the 4K to this. The artwork they did on this one is fantastic. Why would I want to upgrade this one? This Blu-ray is awesome. I would pick up titles like Sleepaway Camp 3. Also not realizing how fast things could go out of print. I did a video on these a while back, but now things are different. Sand Blaster, Sand Pug Pictures, whatever the hell it's called, put out releases of these movies. From what I understand, they leave a little to be desired, but they are available. And other titles like this, Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 on Blu-ray. I would go to FYE and pick up titles. Up around that time, some different things started happening. For instance, this is where I got exposed to Arrow Video for the first time. I started getting titles like The Hills Have Eyes on Blu-ray, these chunky box releases. It was so cool. What is this? I even found The Bride of Reanimator from Arrow, and it was this gorgeous release that apparently is very sought after today. I think you can get the movie still, but not the kind of release that I have. That release is expensive and out of print. But I would always look at certain titles and say, maybe next time. And I'll never forget there was this one title that I used to pass up when I would flip through the movies, and my wife would always say, "You don't want that?" And I would look at it. What movie am I talking about? Well, like I said in the beginning, the movie in question was this, 976 Evil. I would look at it and I would say to myself, is that Scream Factory? Oh, it's just Columbia Pictures Home Video. There I was, just putting it back and flipping through the rest. I was looking for labels at the time because I thought, well, it has to be a boutique release for it to be good, or for the movie to be good. My feeble mind at that time, I still had quite a lot to learn about horror and physical media. Like I've admitted, I am not a lifelong horror fanatic. I didn't really get into horror in a deep way until about 2009 when I was 17, 18 years old. Anyway, this was probably the third or fourth trip since I first saw this Blu-ray at FYE. Finally, my wife looks at it again and she goes, "That looks like a fun movie. Why would you not want that?" I begrudgingly picked it up. Now, why did I not want to get this? Now, this is going to sound nuts to some of you, but on this channel, I keep it real. I remember looking at this thinking the artwork was kind of fun. It looked like a hokey little 80s horror movie, which I loved, but I saw from director Robert Freddy Krueger Englund. That's right, Robert Englund directed 976 Evil. I then looked at the back and looked for a date and saw it came out in 1988. So that means he did this either right before or after Dream Master came out. Admittedly, I wasn't too keen on getting it because I said to myself, well, Robert Englund's a fun actor. He's a great horror character actor. I now admit that I was wrong about that. Robert Englund is just a great actor, period. We've seen him do some amazing things, and I had a lot to learn still, admittedly. But I thought, he can't be a great director, can he? I mean, it's Robert Englund. He's Freddy. Can Freddy direct movies? Boy, was my head all the way up my ass. So I get 976 Evil home, and sure enough, I go to watch it maybe a couple weeks later because my wife was like, are you going to watch that movie with Robert Englund directing it? And I was like, okay, fine. 976 Evil is actually really good. This is an awesome 80s horror film. What is 976 Evil? It's basically about this kid that you might even recognize from another certain horror movie in the 80s who doesn't have the best life. He's a little bit of a dork, but gets this new hobby in horoscope, calling up on a payphone to get these. Well, what he doesn't realize is these horoscopes are going to ruin his life. In the best way for the audience, mind you. 976 Evil is classic late 80s horror with great makeup and great practical effects. It is super energetic, and I'll be damned if it's not extremely well made. And I'm not talking well made for a guy who's primarily an actor. I mean 976 Evil is just well made. Some of the effects in here are to die for, quite frankly. And you might even see some Nightmare on Elm Street alumni, or they would become alumni in this film as well. It's a really great movie. I'll actually try to keep this fairly spoiler-free because I'm honestly not too sure if you watching this have seen 976 Evil. I did a YouTube short about this a while back, and the reception on it was pretty big, so it seems like there's a lot of fans out there for 976 Evil. I couldn't believe how stupid I was. I was so glad that I picked this up. It was such a fun movie, and the Blu-ray of this looked really good. Like I said, I have the DVD of this, but the first way I owned this movie was this right here, 976 Evil from Columbia Pictures Home Video. Now you're probably wondering, okay, what's the lesson here? What happened? This is one of the first times I ever saw a blood cry from fans about this movie. You have to remember, around this time, if you go back to my YouTube channel, you could just tell I didn't key myself in well enough on how physical media worked, how licensing works for things. I've learned at this point that as mysteriously as some physical media releases appear, they can disappear all the same. This is probably one of the biggest examples of a horror physical media Blu-ray release that came and just went. It was probably about 3 or 4 weeks after I got this Blu-ray that somebody had watched a pickup haul video I did, and I mentioned this. Well, they said, hey, where did you get that? And I said, well, I got it at FYE. And I was like, why? He goes, I'm on Amazon right now. It says out of stock. I said, I'm sure there's other websites you can go to. Sure enough, other people started hitting me up about this at the time and said, man, you have that 976 Evil release? That release is sought after now. And I couldn't understand what they meant. This is where I truly learned what out of print really was. 976 Evil came and went. Until this day, in America, 976 Evil has stayed out of print. It's somewhat of a mystery. At first glance, it looks like it's some sort of a studio release. Columbia Pictures Home Video, put out by Sony, and Cinetel Films is on the back of this that I see. One of these on the back is the culprit of why it's out of print. I don't know if it's SBMV, Super Bit Mapping, Sony, or Cinetel Films, but lo and behold, 976 Evil, this Blu-ray, disappeared. And it's a crying shame. There is some light at the end of the tunnel about this video, though, is because overseas, there was a Blu-ray that came out. I think it came from Eureka or one of those companies, and it had great artwork. The problem is, a lot of you, no matter how much I scream from the rooftops to go region-free, you just won't. So the only way to get this is to pay out-of-print prices. Now, let's say somebody's watching this now and wondering, okay, Christian, you sold me on the film, but should I pay out-of-print prices for it? I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I mean, I think I would pay a little bit more than market value of what this cost when it came out, because this was released in 2017, and I think by 2019 it was just gone. It's now 2025, and there's no end in sight for 976 Evil in high definition in America. If you're a region free, you can get it still. I don't know what to think, guys. This release changed my mind on how physical media could be. I often than not now pick up things that I have at least 30% interest in on wanting to see it more than anything, because you never know when this stuff could go away. We're seeing some releases today come and go in the blink of an eye. So when I go and look at my movie collections and I saw 976 Evil, I kind of sat back and thought to myself and said, I've got my wife to thank on why I own this out-of-print title. If you've seen this movie, then you know how great of a horror film it is. If you haven't, I pray that you can get your hands on it at a reasonable price, because 976 Evil is truly an underrated 80s horror gem that was directed by Robert Englund, and this guy held his own with the likes of the horror greats in the directing department. Go out of your way somehow to see this above anything else. There's always lessons to be learned in this world we know as physical media collecting, and this title right here is going to give you a smile or a frown, one way or the other. Let me know your story on this release, if you picked it up, if you didn't pick it up, and what's a release that has the same effect as this one did for you. For me, 976 Evil changed my mind on how I played the game, so to speak. But anyway, guys, that's today's video, and like I said, above all else, go out of your way to see this movie. It is that damn good. Huge giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.